Hi everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Financial Resolution. My name is Josh, and I'm the Program Coordinator with Global Connections. If you haven't had a chance yet, please feel free to check your audio settings underneath the Tools tab with the Audio Wizard tool. Tonight's webinar will allow you to type in questions and chat your comments in the chat box. We'd love for you to participate and ask any questions or submit any comments that you'd like. I'm so happy to be working again with Maya and Andy tonight from Student Financial Services, and without any further ado, I'll turn it over to them. Thank you.
Hi everyone, good evening. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Andy Lear. I'm a Senior Financial Aid Advisor with the Student Financial Services Office.
And I'm Maya Gillespie, also an advisor with Student Financial Services.
So today we're going to kind of just talk about a couple of things. We can't go, we don't have time to go through every single aspect of financial aid and the process involved, but we're going to hit on some key points and some of the key things that get you started, whether you're a continuing Global Campus student or if you're just starting for the first time this semester. So,
before we get started, we do also want to introduce Heather Morgan. She is going to be chatting along with you guys and available to answer questions. So if you have questions while we're talking and we don't get a chance to stop and see it, Heather will be there to answer questions that you may have. So please welcome Heather Morgan as well.
You just type them in whenever you have them. All right, so our first slide is we just want to kind of go over how we communicate with you, the student. Obviously, you're spread out everywhere, so there's no way for you to personally come in and speak with us when you have questions and things like that. So one of the easiest ways, the most convenient ways for you, obviously, is if you have a question, you can always email us. At this time of year, we have we respond to emails usually within 2 to 3 business days. Sometimes a lot sooner, just depending on the time of the year it is. Obviously, with the beginning of semester startup, sometimes it might take those actual full 2 to 3 business days. But email any questions that you ever have to us about your aid, and we'll respond promptly to you right away. Also, phone calls. We have a great communication center on our Pullman campus for all of our students everywhere. We have representatives available 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, to answer any questions that you have concerning that. So feel free to call us anytime. We'll take care of you. One of our future goals that we're looking into right now, you can see there, is we don't have an appointment system set up for Global Campuses as far as face-to-face or anything, but we are trying to head that way with future technologies as far as maybe getting a video screen chat or something like that. But we are looking into doing that in the future, so please stay tuned.
Right. One big topic that's going to affect Global Campus students is going to be census date, and we kind of think of it as an enrollment snapshot, where on the 10th day of classes we're going to take like a still frame snapshot of what your true enrollment is. At that time, depending on if you are not full-time, your financial aid, if you have any kind of grants, will be adjusted. And if you do have any types of grants, let's say you're 3/4 time, on census day will readjust your financial aid package and then disperse it. So your aid will not disperse until census date. And it's just, it's a policy that...
And it also gives you a chance, like maybe you start out with a semester in a class and maybe you realize that you didn't need it or you want to try something else. It gives you that opportunity to either add a class or maybe even drop a class. And so that's why it's designed for you to kind of figure out what exactly you're going to do, and then on that 10th day, it's kind of set in stone at that point as far as your financial aid goes. So.
Yeah, and since we are already approaching the spring semester, if you are currently enrolled in Global Campus and are going to be attending in the spring, our census date for the spring semester will be Friday, January 22nd. And so again, that date we're going to look at your enrollment, and then I think it's that following Monday, we will release your financial aid. And it usually, I think last semester it ran during the day, so then just kind of keep an eye on your MyW2 account. You should see that aid being pushed through. For future, we actually have those dates available. If you are a continuing Global Campus student for next year, you can also attend our summer webinar as well. But our census dates for the 16-17 year are going to be September 2nd and January 20th. Let's just say your aid gets affected by census date, but then after census date, you do become a full-time student. And let's just say you were on a wait list and there was a holdup on maybe the department or the professor's end. you can appeal that census date, or you can appeal that census adjustment. And so we will have a form on our website. It's usually available for, I think, maybe a month or so. It's under the form section on our website again, and you would be able to kind of just give us some background information on what happened, because we don't have any of the background information. We just see the black and white numbers and that kind of thing through MyWSU. So you can just kind of explain that, hey, there was a holdup on WSU's end, out of my control. I am at full time and continue to do that. It's not a guarantee, but then we do, take all that kind of stuff into consideration, and we might be able to give you that full-time funding back. And what happens if you drop a class after this date? If you drop a class after census date, your aid is going to stay the same. However, you could run into issues with what we call satisfactory academic progress, or SAP. So we wouldn't be touching that aid if you just drop a class, but then you could run into some other issues down the road, which we will actually address a little later in the webinar. Something that's going to be coming up, we actually just started, the aid disbursement process just started yesterday. Every semester, depends on what semester, fall semester, the process starts a little bit earlier. How it works is that tuition and fees are going to be posted to your student account. So when you log into your MyWSU account, you should see the tuition for the semester and also your fees. If you have an, I think, Global Campus shouldn't have mandatory fees, but you may have some course fees or something of that sort posted to your student account. That's going to be the first part. Then I guess the first part here is we're going to give you financial aid package. So once you've done that FAFSA, come to WSU, we'll create a financial aid package. The next step in that process is going to be you, the student, is going to decide what awards you want to accept or decline. If you do decline them, we're going to accept all those grants and any of the free monies for you, but then any loans are going to be up to you. It's your responsibility to decide whether or not you want them, need them, whatnot. Then you would do that through MyWSU. Then after that, that's when the tuition and fees are going to be posted to your account. And so just yesterday, our aid disbursement process started. So the aid disbursement is when your financial aid actually releases and hits those charges on your account. And it's going to hit the tuition first, and then if you have course fees, it's not going to automatically apply. You have to select that. But then after everything's been paid for, if you still have funds left over, that's when you're going to get a refund. And it's either going to come to you via check, which would be mailed to your address that we have on file at WSU, or it'll be set up to a direct deposit, which is something that you can elect to do. Check usually takes 5 to 10 business days or so, or at least allow up to that amount of time. Direct deposit's a little quicker. Once it leaves WSU, can take 1 to 3 business days depending on your bank.
So usually everything's set up before the semester starts. The charges get applied on Wednesday. Today's Thursday. Tomorrow evening, the student accounts will generate those direct deposits so that hopefully they then hit your bank accounts on Monday morning, sometime on Monday during the day. So that's generally how that sort of process works if you've got everything with the direct deposit set up ahead of time. So.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen your aid, again, if you're a current student going to be attending in the spring, if you haven't seen your aid apply to those charges yet, there may be something holding it up. In that case, I would recommend giving us a call or shooting us an email just to kind of see what's going on and see if there's something maybe you're missing or something being held up on our end.
But also keep in mind, if it is less than full-time 12 credits and your grants haven't gone through, it could be because of what Maya mentioned earlier with the census date. So keep that in mind. All right. So this next thing we're going to talk about is what we call our cost of attendance. For Global Campus students, you can see the one on the left is for undergrad residents, and then on the other side, undergrad non-residents. Not a whole big difference between the two, but I'll break those down as far as. With tuition, now keep in mind, this is for the whole academic year. So that total number for $24,764 for residents, that's for both fall and spring semesters. So obviously right now we're talking about just the spring semester, so if you're coming in now for the first time, everything's going to be half of that. So, so you have tuition. Right now, that's $10,868. That's a flat-out rate that is based on 10 credits. So that's anywhere from 10 credits to 18 credits. Now, something to keep in mind is it's the same tuition rate at 10 credits, but for financial aid purposes, when we award you, 12 credits is considered full-time, and that's what your grants, that if you receive any kind of grant money, that's what that is based on. So even though you might just be in 10 credits and be considered full-time maybe through the university as far as financial aid goes, it's 3/4 time, and so that's why we wait till census date to release that information, to release those grant monies. So keep that in mind. So we have tuition, obviously for non-residents a little bit higher, but not too much. Then books. That's the average cost of books for the whole year. So $480 a semester. That's what we factor in to be the average cost of books and supplies for the whole term. When I'm talking to students, I like to talk about tuition and books, kind of refer to it as sort of like your ticket into the amusement park, because those are, I'm sorry, not the books, the tuition part, I beg your pardon. It's kind of something that has to be paid. There's no negotiation. Tuition is what tuition is, depending on your credits. Everything below that, the books, the room, the board, and the miscellaneous expenses are all kind of the extras that you get while you're in the amusement park, as far as food, cotton candy, souvenirs, things like that. That's all going to be different from student to student, just depending on your lifestyle and your spending habits and how you're living and things like that. But what we do with our cost of attendance is we award every student the same budget, and that's what we're talking about here. So with room and board, you can see that is for the full academic year. That's over $11,000 for the full year that we budget you for. And then miscellaneous expenses, those are just your miscellaneous living expenses as far as, you know, buying clothes and necessities and toiletries and things, just things that you, everyday things that you need. That is factored into your budget when we award you as a student. So just keep in mind that this is based on the current academic year that we're in. You can go to our website for more information as how it's broken down, maybe a little bit more. So take a look at that at financialaid.wsu.edu. Next up, we're talking about the FAFSA. So hopefully at this point, for the semester that's starting this Monday, you've already done the FAFSA for this academic year or this semester. But we can also touch on next year as well, because the dates are always going to be the same. FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. It's the federal website. I'm sure you've been there, FAFSA.gov. But that's where you go if you're needing financial aid for your schooling. When you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to need your financial information from the year prior. So right now, even though we're in spring of 2016, this current FAFSA has been available since January 1st of 2015. So it's going to be asking for your financial information from 2014 calendar year. So if you haven't done it yet, please keep that in mind. If you're getting ready to do your FAFSA for next fall and spring, it's going to be asking for 2015 information that just ended. When you're doing your FAFSA, a lot of times you're going to come across something called an EFC. And that's a term that's called an expected family contribution number. Schools use that to determine what kind of need-based aid that you're eligible for. So if we go back and look at your cost of attendance, say $24,764, that's what your budget is. Say your EFC that FAFSA has calculated is 0. That means that you take 0 from $24,764, and that's going to determine that you have $24,764 worth of need-based aid. Now, it's not guaranteeing that you're going to get that much money in need-based aid, but at that point, you're going to be qualifying for the most need-based programs, whether it's grants or specific types of loans and that sort of thing. So EFC, if you see that when you're filling out the FAFSA, don't think of it so much as a dollar amount that you have to contribute to your school before you can go to school. It's not that. It's just that it's the government's way of saying, you know, based on what the information you supply, you should be or could be, but then we award you based on that. So it's more for schools to determine what kind of aid you can get. And we talked about grants and need-based aid. Even if we go back one more time, say your EFC is $30,000. Obviously, $30,000 from $24,764 is a negative number. It can't be more than what your total cost of attendance is. I mean, it just means that you're not eligible for any need-based aid, but you're still eligible for loans, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So there are loans that you're still eligible for. You just might not be qualified for any kind of free money or grants and that sort of thing. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. And oftentimes we get the question, do I even qualify for financial aid, or should I fill out the FAFSA? I mean, it's free. It doesn't take that long. We always recommend that, yes, you should. There may be some grants, and depending on that EFC, you may qualify for some grants or those free monies, and that's really helpful because those are things that you do not have to pay back on like a loan. But we don't know until you fill out that FAFSA. So we highly, highly recommend doing it every year.
Absolutely, every year. And we'll talk about deadlines as far as when to fill it out by and that sort of thing. That way, even if FAFSA says that your EFC is low and you could qualify for grant money, you're guaranteed to get those. But we will talk about those dates a little bit farther down the line here. So let's touch on loans briefly. The types of loans that are out there from the federal government, there are subsidized and unsubsidized direct loans. Subsidized is a need-based loan. So it does depend on what your EFC is and your need. Subsidized versus unsubsidized, the difference is that subsidized, the interest that's accruing on that loan while you're in school is being taken care of by the government. That just means that you don't have to worry about interest accruing while you're in school. Interest on those loans only start to accrue 6 months after graduation, or if you fall below half-time ever, 6 months after that time. And that's when interest starts accruing on that loan. So an unsubsidized direct loan, that's something is if you've maxed out on your subsidized loans because you can't get all your loans in subsidized. Some of it's always going to be in unsubsidized. But it just means that the loan starts accruing interest from the moment that you borrow it. So the moment it disperses, interest starts accruing on that portion of the loan. Now with these loans, again, you're not required to make payments on them until you go into your 6 months after graduation normally. Something that you can keep in mind though is if you are borrowing an unsubsidized loan and you're doing it for the first time when you're out with the federal government signing your master promissory note, there's a section there where they'll give you the option if you want to start making payments on the interest that's accruing on that loan. It's not a bad idea because then if you say you're in school for 3 years or 4 years and you're getting unsubsidized loans every single year, once you graduate, there's going to be 4 years of interest tacked onto that first loan, 3 years of interest tacked onto the next year, 2, and then 1. But if you're making small payments on those interests, on those loans, just on the interest itself, as you go, your loans will just be what you borrowed when it goes back time for repayment, and it can save you a lot of money. So that's something that I highly recommend. Not something you have to do, but something to keep in mind. So the next one we have is Perkins loans. Kind of not a touchy subject, but earlier back in October, Congress just decided not to continue with the program, but then in December, President Obama decided to bring it back, and so now it's back. We think. I mean, it's here for another, for about another 2 years. So if you're a continuing student and you were awarded it for the whole academic year, starting in fall and spring, you're still going to get it for the spring term. If you're a new student for the spring, it's not going to be available. But if you're going to be attending summer classes during the summer sessions, we're going to try and see what we have available for Perkins loans to have that available for summer. It's another subsidized loan. So even though it's a federal program, the loan is coming from the school itself. So you're actually getting the loan from WSU, and then you're going to repay WSU. And again, it's interest-free while you're in school, and then repayment for that loan starts 9 months after graduation, as opposed to 6 months for the subsidized and unsubsidized direct loans. And then, for the most part, because we're talking about global campus students, the information we're providing here is under the assumption that you're an independent student and not dependent on your parents. And so, if there's not enough funding after you've exhausted your amounts for subsidized, unsubsidized, and maybe Perkins loans, then if you're still needing assistance at that point, then you might look into getting a private loan, and then you can get that from a local bank, credit union, online lender, that sort of thing, and that's getting a private educational loan when you're applying for that. Our website has information about private lenders and just the loan periods and things and terminology and definitions and that sort of thing. You can definitely go take a look at. The loan process, we'll touch quickly, especially with the subsidized and unsubsidized direct loans. Master promissory note. That is done with the federal government. We'll show you that website later on, but it's studentloans.gov, and that's the formal agreement to repay the loan. So you'll be doing that with the same FSA ID and password that you do to fill out your FAFSA, but it's done on that website. Also on that website, if you're borrowing a subsidized and unsubsidized direct loan for the first time, you have to do an entrance counseling. Basically, you have to read some material online, answer some questions, basically take a quiz so that the government knows that you understand what it means to take out a loan. So you have to do that one time before you borrow a loan, and then when you graduate or if you fall below half-time and drop out of school, then you have to go through exit counseling, and that's just to inform them that it's going to tell you the next steps as far as repayment options and that sort of thing. So that's something you do one time when you're getting ready to graduate. And so now we talk about the loan limits. The loan limits that we're referring to here are for the subsidized and unsubsidized direct loans. So if you're a freshman, you can't receive more than $3,500 in subsidized direct loan. And then you can get up to an additional $6,000 for the whole academic year in unsubsidized loans. So we got $3,500 for subsidized, $6,000 for unsubsidized. Now, if you happen to not have any need based on your FAFSA and your EFC, this total amount of $9,500 could be all in unsubsidized loan. But again, that's something that you will be offered and guaranteed to get then. Then if you move up to sophomore status, your subsidized goes up $1,000 more, so $4,500. Stays the same for unsubsidized, $6,000, or again, any combination up to $10,500 in unsubsidized. And then if you're a junior or senior, $5,500, it goes up $1,000 more, and then the unsubsidized goes up $1,000 more, $7,000. Total of $12,500. Now keep in mind, if you're if you were attending classes back in fall, this past fall, and then continuing this spring, you're getting equal disbursements of these. So you're getting half of these loans in the fall, and you're getting the other half in the spring. If you're starting spring semester for the first time and you didn't attend school anywhere else during the fall semester or fall quarter or wherever, and you didn't borrow a loan during that academic year period, then you can receive the whole annual year limit for the spring term. So that's something to keep in mind if you are starting out this term in the spring, because you're like, oh, I got all these loans, and then when next fall comes, you're only going to get half of it for fall and then the other half for spring. So that's something to keep in mind. And just quickly down there at the bottom, it talks about your lifetime loan limits. Again, for undergraduate degrees, $22,000 is the maximum that you can get for subsidized if you qualify, and $34,500 for unsubsidized, or $57,500 total in any kind of combination of that. So, great. Let's just keep going on here then.
All right, and the next topic, we're going to talk about scholarships, one of my favorite things to talk about. Because scholarships are free money, and who doesn't want free money? And these are things that you aren't going to have to pay back. They're going to be a mix of merit-based, need-based, non-need-based, all that kind of stuff. So what we definitely want to recommend and hit right now, especially because it's the perfect time to do it, is to mention the WSU General Scholarship application. And the deadline is, what is it, Andy? January 31st. All right, perfect. If you log on or go onto the WSU or the Student Financial Services website, you'll see a little countdown, and it's going to be in black right next to our FAFSA, WASPA countdown as well. And so we're kind of counting down the days. There's about 24 days left until this is due and it's shut off. So after the 31st of January, you will not be able to fill out this application anymore. When you do fill out the application, it's going to ask you some essay questions. You're going to have some basic demographic information, what's your area of interest or what are you studying in school, that kind of thing. But then there's going to be some essay questions about your leadership experience, dealing with adversity, community service, your future goals, your academic goals, that kind of stuff. And these are things that we do have a team that will be assessing these and evaluating these starting in the spring, probably around March or April or so. Once we evaluate them, we will contact you if you get a scholarship. If you don't get one of these, you will just not hear from us on that. But with that, there's also the Global Campus Scholarship. And so that's going to be a separate application. So with the WSU one, you're going to be put in the pool for over 700 different types of scholarships. The qualifications they range greatly between these. So we definitely want to say apply for that WSU General Scholarship application. But then there's also one specific to Global Campus students, and it's through Global Campus. It's awarded through the ASWSU online government. And there are 3 different scholarships you can apply for. One can be for the full academic year, and the deadline for that is July 1st. There's one for spring only. Unfortunately, the deadline for that has already passed for this year, but that would be November 1st. So then for next year, you can kind of keep that in mind. And then for summer, if you're going to plan on attending summer session this year, you can apply. The deadline for that is March 15th. There's some more information on the Global Campus website. I don't think we have that link handy right now, but that is definitely something that we can talk to Josh and have that send out. We can get a follow-up email with the survey. We can include that link for you. So that's going to be on all the information for the Global Campus ones on the Global Campus website. But then also on our website, we do have some great information on our scholarships page about outside scholarships. And so these are going to be things from different community groups, let's say like Rotary clubs or church groups even. So we're going to have tons of information there. And these scholarships are going to, there's some that are local scholarships, but then also some that are kind of like nationwide things. So definitely check out that resource for you. But then also, depending on your academic area of study, they could have some scholarships there too. So the College of Business is going to have some scholarships specifically for students who are in College of Business. Or let's say if you're studying biology, there might be something for students studying biology. So you definitely want to talk to your academic department and see what kind of scholarship opportunities they have. And they're going to have, again, another application, but most likely you can use kind of the same essay information and use it for that too. But those are definitely some sources that there are scholarship opportunities there, and sometimes they're just underutilized. So definitely hit up the departments and the outside scholarship resources that we have. Anything you want to add?
Not really. I think you covered it pretty closely. Just keep in mind, that there is no, again, she mentioned that they're always giving out scholarships. So there's really no end period. If you have, a lot of people are like, well, I haven't heard back. When will I hear? Again, she mentioned if you don't get one, they don't send you something that says, we don't send you something that says you didn't get a scholarship, because it could be into the semester where maybe somebody that was receiving a scholarship didn't end up coming to school, and so then it opens up again, and so they'll reevaluate and offer that. So just keep in mind, and there's never really an end point. So
yeah. Okay. Okay, so then here's something that you may want to write down. Again, this presentation is going to be available for later use, so you guys can probably write these down. You can save this print off later. But some important dates and deadlines, and these are things that our office, we take seriously. These are going to definitely affect different types of aid, and so you definitely want to make sure to keep these things in mind. Put them on your calendar or in your planner. And we just talked about the WSU General Scholarship application, January 31st. Again, 24 days. Make sure to go fill that out. And then we have the FAFSA or the LOSFA, and the date for that can be February 15th. This would, and you can always fill out the FAFSA as long as it's opening. So it's usually for
all the way through from
to
January
the end of the
July almost.
Yeah, I think end of the academic year. If you make the deadline of February 15th and get it to our office by then, make sure it gets sent to WSU. That's going to put you in the eligibility standing for different types of grants. So if you miss that deadline, it's going to be strictly loans, but then if you definitely hit that deadline, it could give you some grant opportunities as well.
Right. If I can add something really quick here. So yeah, we've been now that February 15th deadline is our WSU priority deadline for filling out the FAFSA. So obviously, with this date right now, we're really referring to the next academic year. The FAFSA was available on New Year's Day at midnight morning. We ask that you get it done by February 15th, so that you can so that if you do qualify based on the FAFSA for grants, then by making that priority deadline on February 15th, that's another step to ensuring that you will get those. Something to keep in mind a lot is, I've talked to students that have filled out the FAFSA on February 15th at 9 o'clock at night Pacific time, and then ends up being late because most of the federal government stuff happens on the East Coast, and it's already the 16th. So don't wait until the last minute, because it could come back to bite you. So.
And then the last deadline we have is going to be our additional requested documents deadline, which is May 15th. And this deadline would be for if there was something on the FAFSA that kind of stuck out that wasn't matching up with something, we may just ask for some additional documentation to kind of prove it. So sometimes we're going to ask for, let's say, some tax return transcripts. We could just need to verify like a household size, or there's going to be different ways that we're going to say, or different documents that we might request of you. So the deadline for that, again, is going to be May 15th. If you meet that, if you get selected for those verification documents and you meet the February 15th and that May 15th deadline, and that'll keep you in good standing for grant eligibility. If you miss one of those deadlines, unfortunately it does put you, it can affect your financial aid negatively. So remember those dates, 15th of May and 15th of February.
And the only other thing that I want to mention is when filling out the FAFSA, there is one grant program that's a federal program, if you've heard of the federal Pell Grant. Now that is an entitlement grant, so that one is not tied to any deadlines on our part or anything like that. That is, if you fill out the FAFSA and you qualify for Pell Grant, it could be the last day of the semester you fill out the FAFSA, but if you qualify for Pell Grant, then you're entitled to get that grant money. So keep that in mind. And then just the only other thing I want to mention about that February 15th FAFSA deadline is because it's looking back at, like, so we're now talking, bear in mind we're talking now with the February 15th deadline for next fall and spring. It's going to ask for 2015 income information, things that you're going to report to the IRS for taxes. Now, here we are only a week into the new year. You probably haven't done your taxes yet. But what you can do is you can put down either your best guesses or put down what your income was last year when you reported it, if you know it's going to be very similar, just to get an idea, just to get the FAFSA filled out by that February 15th deadline. Then after you have done your taxes, go back to FAFSA, make a correction to yours, and put in the actual real amounts. So I get that question a lot. We're like, well, I haven't done my taxes yet because they're not due till April 15th. But you can put down your best guesses now just to get it submitted. So.
And I think with that, if you go back and if you log back into your FAFSA after you have filed your taxes, I believe it's a data retrieval tool that will automatically, it'll pull the information from your taxes and just import it into that FAFSA. So it makes it really quick and easy for you and gets it done rather than you having to look at both sides of the thing, both the FAFSA and your taxes and enter that in. So just makes it a little easier on you.
All right, so we'll touch on this next subject. I talked about it earlier briefly about satisfactory academic progress, or we just refer to the acronym SAP. This is something that we have to monitor for all students that are receiving federal or state financial aid. We're required to do so by law. So basically, it comes down to, you know, if you're not succeeding in some of the areas, the federal government wants to make sure that the money that you're getting it's worth the fact that you're getting at. So by monitoring that, we're ensuring that you're staying on track to graduate with a good GPA and that sort of thing. But it does affect your financial aid if you have a bad semester or a couple of bad semesters. Some of the requirements that you see there, maintaining the eligibility, you know, we ask that you maintain a 2.0 cumulative GPA. It doesn't mean you could have, I mean, if you have a bad semester or something like that and it's not a 2.0, that we're not going to give you financial aid. But we monitor it. So if you fall below that, you might be on a warning status for the next semester. Also, we ask that you're completing 67% of the attempted credits per semester. So if you're in 12 credits, you want to make sure that you're completing 67% of those credits by the end of the term. So if you drop one class, it'll just depend on the math of whether it's 67% or not. Again, you know, a warning status you'll get the first time won't affect your aid the next semester, but 2 consecutive semesters will usually then constitute a denial, where then you'll have to go through an appeal process with our office in order to, we just need to check and see what's going on with that. But we do monitor that as well. So far we've got GPA, we've got attempted credits. And then the other one that we monitor is completing your degree within 150 attempted credits. It usually, on most degrees, it usually takes about 120 credits to get your degree. So if you've reached 150 and you still haven't graduated, we need to know what's going on and that sort of thing. So, but we'll let you know when you're getting close to 150. We'll send you a warning for one semester and the next, and then if you're at that, then if you're in denial status, you just need to send in an appeal and tell us what's going on. The SAP appeal process, we just, well, if we're talking about any students that attended this past fall, you know, it's a tight turnaround for spring term, just with the university being closed right after Christmas Eve and all the way through the new year. You know, we just opened up on January 4th. It's a tight process to get SAP processed and everything. So if you were receiving things at this point saying that you failed a contract or that you are in denial based on GPA or whatever it is, and you do need to have an appeal done, it should be on your checklist on your My.WSU. It's all online. Complete that RB SAP appeal form and submit it to us as soon as possible. And then we will review it, and if you're approved, then we will email you an academic plan based on what you put in your appeal. So, because it's always going to be asking for your how many credit, what classes you're taking in the upcoming term. So that'll be a factor of your academic plan. You'll sign it, submit it to us, and then we'll release your aid for that term. So if you have gotten this SAP denial and you have to fill out an appeal, do that as soon as possible and get it to our office. And right now our turnaround time is 10 business days. Obviously the semester will have started by then. Before we might be able to get to yours, but get it to us as soon as possible. We have people working around the clock to get those done. So
yeah, and with that, I just kind of how I like to talk to students about the SAP appeal process is we have no idea what happened during the semester. We can only see the black and white numbers, and let's just say your GPA fell below 2.0. We can just see the grades and see those numbers, but we have no idea what your situation was. And so the appeal process is put in place for you to provide that background information and kind of tell us what happened during the semester and then what steps you're going to take in order to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. So if you do find yourself in a situation, definitely do the SAP appeal.
great.
Okay, some of your responsibilities. You are the student, so you have quite a bit of responsibilities. We are not mind readers, so we are here to help you and here for resources for you. But one of the big things that we like to drive home is to check your WSU email. This is one of the main avenues that we send out communications about any changes to your award. If we are missing some kind of documentation from you, we're going to be sending it to your WSU email. Starting, I think it was this last fall, WSU is required, or we put in a policy that communication from WSU to the student is going to be through that WSU email. If you are someone who doesn't check your WSU email frequently, there is an option to set up your WSU email to forward to a personal email. So it can go to your Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, whatever email you use, but it would at least go starting through that WSU email. It's not just our office that communicates this way, but it's going to be every office on campus as well. So another thing you want to do is to stay up to date and frequently check your student center. So in My.WSU, you do have a student center where you will see, we have a screenshot coming up on the right-hand side. Yep, right-hand side, there's going to be some kind of blue-gray boxes that are going to show. Next one, I think it is. Yeah, you're going to see these little gray boxes here that are going to have different holds or different checklist items for different departments. And ours is going to be right there where Andy's doing a showing you the 2015-2016. So with the scholarship application, for example, if you do it for this next year, you're going to see one in the 16-17 box when that comes up. It's going to be marked as received once we get it from you. So if we are requesting anything from you, you're definitely going to be able to see it here. You'll also get an email from us. So let's go back right into the Student Center. Just I guess get familiar with Student Center. There are many moving parts to that.
Check it all the time. Check it on a daily basis.
And it's not just our office that uses it. It's going to be many different offices on campus within Global Campus, but also just different entities within WSU itself that work with all different campuses. So yeah, there's going to be, you're going to see your charges for the semester up there. If you have any past due balances, it's going to be up there as well. If you have academic goals, all that stuff's going to be in your Student Center. So definitely look around, spend some time just getting used to it and comfortable with it so you know where everything is. This next one is going to be a screenshot just of the My Communication Center in your Student Center. And so anytime we send out an email to you, you're going to get it in your WSU email, but you'll also be able to view it here. And so you can just click on the view or read messages, and you can see any email that we have sent. So you can see the student, you can see the date that we sent it, and you can see just the description. Once you pull it up, it'll show you the whole letter. And usually ours are going to be kind of in a letter form that say, Dear Andy Lair, you found yourself in SAP denial, that kind of thing, and then you'll have all that information. there too. So it's just going to help you have it in 2 different spots just for your reference. And then this last screenshot is going to be, again, one of the 2 checklist items. So like I was saying earlier, if you click on, let's just say that there was an actual checklist item in the financial aid box down there. If you click on it, they'll bring you to another screen and it'll show you what the checklist is, what it's for, and it'll give you a status. So it will say either initiated, received, and if there's nothing there, then it means it's completed or we've canceled it. If it is initiated, that means there's something for you as a student to take care of. If it says received, it means that we are handling something. We are processing whatever we need to get that completed for you. So I think that's the last screenshot. And then we just have some information here. We have all of our contact information here, our email, our website. We have some great information on our website. So I
Social media, yeah.
strongly advise you to check that out. Yeah, we have 3 different social media avenues that we post very frequently. We post some great information that's going to be helpful for you.
Deadlines, reminders, helpful hints, things like that.
Right now we're really hitting out some scholarships on all 3 of those social media sites too. So, and as I mentioned earlier, you should have, and if you didn't, we're going to send it out again after the webinar, but we have some helpful little resources that were sent. We have one that was sent for staff, and then we also have another one that's just resources. It's going to have information about our office. We have FAFSA information, National Student Loan Database, some other financial aid things that are just kind of like national.
Where you do your loan paperwork and that sort of thing, all that.
Yeah.
And you haven't sent that, but we will send that again to you for everyone that has participated in the seminar. So, but other than that, we thank you for joining us. If you have any more questions, feel free to keep typing them in, and we'll get them answered. But again, have a great semester, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in tonight. I am in the process right now of copying over the survey link that's here on the screen into the chat box. If you would mind clicking that link and just taking a few quick seconds to fill out, we have some great programming planned for you guys for the 2016 spring semester. But with your guys' responses to these surveys, we can make it even better for you guys and gear our programming towards what you want, which is great. I would like to remind you that tomorrow morning I'll be sending out an email that will include the survey link as well, in case you missed it, along with the resources that Maya and Andy discussed, the 2 attachments. You should have got them emailed to you today, this afternoon, but if you didn't, please send me an email at global.connections@wsu.edu, and I'll email you with those if you don't get them tomorrow either. Keep on checking out our website at connections.wsu.edu, and that will keep you posted on all of our upcoming programming and events. I want to thank you guys again, and thanks Maya and Andy for a great night. We'll be here for a few more minutes to answer any questions that you have. Thanks everyone, and go Cougs.